It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Well, it is. It's lovely out. It's a little warm. It's turning the air conditioning. That's why I'm having iced coffee. Are you there? Yes. Is it 1:30? It's 1:29. Ding, 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 ding. Hello. There you are. I'm logging on. So yes, Dean Butler read yesterday, and he was just amazing. He was fantastic. Okay, he went all out. We started talking about it. It was a Manly Monday. Someone said Manly Monday, and then started doing like hashtag Manly Monday. And Dean Butler actually opened his reading by playing the karaoke version of the Bangles' Manic Monday. Manly Monday. Too cool. And then the chapter, sleigh bells. He had sleigh bells. He actually got out sleigh bells. Jingle, 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 jingle. This is why we love Dean Butler. Do we love Dean Butler? Okay, we love Dean Butler for a bunch of reasons. He's cute and all. But we love Dean Butler. Only Dean Butler go, yes, I got the Bangles. I got the sleigh bells. I'm ready. Yes, he is the man. He is the man. So, and he was like, well, this may be my last reading. I'm like, nah. Because there is so much lovey-dovey Laura Almanzo stuff that we will have to make him read at least a couple more chapters of this book before we are done. And then, yeah, I'm going to keep going. He was like, she going to keep going, read the first 4? Yeah, I'm going to read the first 4 years. And although it was like a manuscript that was found later, and it's like probably all wrote, and it's like weird, what the heck? It talks about, Laura Almanzo and having a baby, and it's great. So, what the heck, we'll read it. But yeah, Dean is Dean Butler. Yes, genius. So, I'm back, and it's hot today, so I'm actually having a Starbucks bottled Frappuccino in here. That's good. Now, indeed, I put it. Who sent fudge? Okay, who sent fudge? Right? I was like, who sent fudge? And luckily, Tracy was identified. I was like, because this box arrives from Michigan, from Joanne's Fudge of Mackinac Island, Michigan, in Mackinac City, Michigan. Joanne'sFudge.com. And Joanne's Fudge. And I was like, well, that's nice, this box, right? I opened it up, and there's no note. It's just from the company, from Joanne's Fudge. I'm like, well, there must be a note in the box. No. I open up the fudge, I go through the wrappings, the thing. There was a little plastic knife included with the fudge, but no note. So I'm like, mystery fudge. Who said fudge? And then, luckily, yes, Tracy of Michigan said, I said fudge, where's my note? And I'm like, you sent the fudge. So, indeed. So, and then someone chimed in and said, are you talking about Mackinac Island fudge? Because Mackinac Island fudge is amazing. And they're correct. Now, this is fudge with walnuts in it. That's okay. I'm not allergic to anything, and I like nuts. In fact, last night, I was saying to my husband, we were saying, who the heck sent fudge? What? I said, walnuts. I don't know. I don't know if I've had walnut fudge. And my husband, Bob, said, walnuts? No, they're like on the list of superfoods. They are so good for you. I said, I thought that was almonds. Because no, walnuts. Walnuts are on the list. Walnuts are very healthy and good for you. So, thank you. Thank you very much for the walnut fudge. And then somebody said, fudge is good with popcorn. So, let's see if that's true. Oh, macadam, I heard it, Mackinac Island. Hola. Well, that's our it is good popcorn. It's really sweet, though. I can't eat that much of that. I would die. Fudge can be, it said, fudge can be frozen, but do not refrigerate. I did not know that. I'm bad. I have been refrigerating. I didn't refrigerate this. But I'll probably put it in the freezer because it's getting a little warm in here. I have refrigerated fudge. I am remiss. I did not know that you are not supposed to refrigerate your fudge. Now I know. But I will indeed, I will freeze my fudge if I don't scarf this the next day. But it's a little toasty, so I might have to freeze it. So, today, is it the 30th? Or it is the 30th already. How is it already the 30th? It is the 30th. It is National Meteor Watch Day. Wait, no, not that too. Wait, okay, murder hornets, locusts, terrible diseases. Wait, and then there's meteor, because the giant, like, asteroid meteor that's no doubt going to strike us at any moment. But it's Meteor Watch Day, so we must keep an eye out. It's Social Media Day, and here we all are. Here we all are. Look how many people who have made friends from this, from all these things. I remember when we went to Walnut Grove with the Little House cast, the first reunion, the 40th, and people like standing in the rain and hanging out. A bunch of people made friends from all over the world. There were people who were like, I just met this girl from Australia, and now we're friends. All these people who love Little House and were hanging out alone in their little town, and none of their friends liked Little House, and suddenly they had friends all over the world. And we're doing it again. People have made friends just here in the comments, just coming in to watch reading here. It's crazy. So, yay, social media is actually sometimes a good thing. National OOT Day. I don't know what that is, but I looked it up. It's outfit of the day. OOTD of the day. The day. TD. Outfit of the day, where you come up with a crazy outfit for the day. Well, this is wild. And I had trouble at first because I was like, what color is this even? How do I find a bonnet that has all the colors of this blouse? And then I did. Ta-da! Because they exist. Ooh, Girl Scout cookies? Yeah, well, I have some. I have Thin Mints in the freezer. Don't we all have Thin Mints in the freezer? I totally stashed my Thin Mints in the freezer. They're there. So, nom. Yes, that's right. Charlotte Stewart's husband. He, meteorist, or whatever they call him. He, has precious stones and pieces of meteor, and that he has made into jewelry, and what. And it's lovely. Oh, hello. All things are just happening, and this popcorn. It's fantastic. So, it's going to get exciting. I always get, like, the scary, like, murder chapters. Now, this is the book, this one, Happy Golden Years. I talked about this before, the musical, when they did the musical of Little House on the Prairie with Melissa Gilbert playing Ma, a little girl playing Laura. They did a lot from Little Town on the Prairie and Happy Golden Years. It was very focused on that and the whole Lamanza thing. So they did. They had the Mrs. Brewster, and I don't remember if they called her Mrs. Brewster, and she had a big number about how it was lonely on the prairie and the wind was making her crazy and she didn't like the deal. She had a whole number about like, dun, 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 the stage was all dark and rah. So yes, she does kind of go bonkers. Because as we would have said, if this was today and we saw this woman behaving like this, we would say, she's troubled. She is not well, perhaps. Perhaps being out in this tiny town with just her husband and then the brother-in-law up the road, she didn't like it. She says back east, she is having some kind of terrible anxiety or depression issue. Something's wrong. She needs help. And indeed, she does. She has issues. She would absolutely, someone would be trying to get her medical help in this century. So I don't know if they're going to call Doc Baker or what they're going to do, but things get crazy. So, get ready. Okay, so Almanzo, he picked her up from school. Fantastic. So here we go. So she keeps she goes home for the weekend. She gets to go home for the weekend every weekend. Chapter 6, Managing. While Pa played the fiddle that evening at home, Laura felt much better. 2 weeks were gone, she thought. There were but 6 more. She could only keep on trying. The music stopped and Pa asked, "What's the trouble, Laura? Don't you want to make a clean breast of it?" She had not meant to worry them. She intended to say nothing that was not cheerful. But suddenly she said, "Oh, Pa, I don't know what to do." She told them all about that miserable week at school. "What can I do?" she asked. I must do something. I can't fail. But I am failing. If only I were big enough to whip Clarence. That's what he needs, but I can't. "You might ask Mr. Brewster to," Carrie suggested. "He could make Clarence behave himself." "Oh, but Carrie," Laura protested, How can I tell the school board that I can't manage the school? No, I can't do that. There you have it, Laura, Pa said. It's all in the word manage. You might not get far with Clarence, even if you were big enough to punish him as he deserves. Brute force can't do much. Everybody's born free, you know, like it says in the Declaration of Independence. And the 4th of July, it's going to be this week. Declaration of Independence. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And good or bad, nobody but Clarence could ever boss Clarence. You better just manage. Now, Pa got how many old homilies, sayings, cliches, and into one paragraph. He jammed them all in. It's just, he left out all's well that ends well. That was the only thing he didn't say just now. He said, brute force can't do much. Everybody's born free, you know, like it says in the Declaration of Independence. And you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. You're going to hit us with all of the cliches simultaneously. But he has a point. He has a point. Now, remember, a lot of Rose influence, so the Declaration of Independence will come up quite a bit. But that's fine, because we're in 4th of July week, and I did threaten to, read the Declaration of Independence, or at least part of it. It's really long. It's part of it on the 4th of July, like Laura did on the 4th of July. And he's right. Somebody like Clarence, and Clarence is also already a teenager, really, how much are you going to change? I mean, really, even if she could beat him senseless, he's 17. Clarence isn't going to change, not just from one little 5'2" teacher whooping him. It's not going to happen. So he has a point. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And good or bad, nobody but Clarence can ever boss Clarence. You better just manage. Go teach you how to manage, Clarence. Well, yes, I know, Pa, Laura said, but how? Well, first of all, be patient. Now, this is Pa dispensing. This isn't even Ma, who was a teacher dispensing this advice. This is Pa, and he knows his business. First of all, be patient. Try to see things his way, so far as you can. Better not try to make him do anything, because you can't. He doesn't sound to me like a really vicious boy. No, he isn't, Laura agreed. But I guess I just don't know how to manage him. If I were you, Ma gently began. Thank you, the actual teacher. And Laura, remember that Ma had been a school teacher. I'd give way to Clarence and not pay any attention to him. It's attention he wants. That's why he cuts up. Be pleasant and nice to him, but put all your attention on the others and straighten them out. Clarence will come round. That's right, Laura. Listen to your Ma, said Pa. Wise as a serpent and gentle as a dove. Ooh, that's like one of my favorite Bible passages. Yes, wise as a serpent, gentle as doves is from the Bible. And you're probably all now trying to figure out, wait, Nellie Olson has a favorite Bible passage? Wait, what just happened? But yes, wise as serpents, gentle as doves. That, indeed, caution sometimes is necessary. That, of course, as a good Christian, one wants to be gentle as a dove, but sometimes you also might need to be wise as a serpent and keep your eyes open, because, things get weird. Handy to be wise as a serpent while being gentle as a dove. Keep that in mind. And Pa knows that his wife, Caroline, is totally wise as a serpent, gentle as a dove. That's why he didn't start nothing with her. You see, even in the books, she talks about some of these husbands who are just perfectly awful to their wives. But he goes, wow, Charles is so nice to his wife. No, he ain't gonna start nothing with Caroline. He knows. So there you go. So he makes a good point. So it's all about attention. And then, of course, he says, wise as a serpent, gentle as a dove. And Ma's a little upset. Charles, said Ma. Pa took up his fiddle and began saucily playing to her. Saucy, like Clarence. Saucily. Can she make a cherry pie, Billy boy, Billy boy? Can she make a cherry pie, charming Billy? Pa is naughty. Sunday afternoon, when Laura was flying over the sunny snow in the cutter, Almanza Wilder said, It chirks you up. This is a word. It chirk, C-H-I-R-K. It chirks you up to go home over Sunday. I've got an idea it's pretty tough staying at Brewster's. It's my first school, and I never was away from home before, Laura answered. I get homesick. I do appreciate your driving so far to take me home. "It's a pleasure," he said. Just saying. It was polite of him to say so, but Laura saw no pleasure for him in that long, cold drive. She still doesn't get it. She does. They hardly said a word the whole way because of the cold, and she knew very well that she would not be entertaining anyway. She could hardly ever think of anything to say to strangers. The horses were so warm from trotting, they must not stand one moment in the cold wind, so at the Brewster's door he stopped them only long enough for Laura to jump quickly out. As they went on, he touched his fur cap with his gloved hand and called, through the sleigh bells' music, "Goodbye till Friday." Laura felt guilty. She had not expected him to make that long drive every week. She hoped he did not think that she was expecting him to do it. Surely he was not thinking of, of maybe being her beau. The kids at the school figured it out. The children figured it. They went, "Yeah, it's your boyfriend. It's your boyfriend. It's your beau. He's beauing. He's beauing." Mary Powers, the people in town, Almanza's driving her to and from school every single weekend in the cutter, 12 miles and back. Duh, he has a crush on her. He's trying to be her beau. The kids in the school are like, "Yeah, teacher's boyfriend's here." They totally all know. She's the only one. Ma and Pa know. Ma's like, "She's only 15. They know. Everyone knows, except Laura's the last to know. It's adorable. It's adorable. She was almost used to Mrs. Brewster's miserable house. She had only to forget it as well as she could, to study until bedtime, and in the mornings to make her bed neatly, swallow her breakfast, wipe the dishes, and get away to school. There were only 6 weeks more now. On Monday morning, school began as glumly as it had ended on Friday. But Laura was determined to make a change, and she began at once. When Tommy had stumbled through his reading lesson, she smiled at him and said, "Your reading is improving, Tommy. You deserve a reward. Would you like to copy your spelling lessons on the blackboard?" Tommy smiled, so she gave him the spelling book and a new piece of chalk. When he had copied his lessons, she praised his writing and told him that now he could study his spelling from the board. She gave the spelling book to Ruby. "Your reading lesson was very good, too," she said to Ruby. "So tomorrow, would you like to copy your spelling lesson on the blackboard?" "Oh, yes, ma'am," Ruby answered eagerly, and Laura thought, that's one thing managed. Yeah, now, some people would say, how's that? But that is, it's easy. It's up on the board, and then they don't have to share the book and elbow each other, and it's actually an advantage to get your stuff up on the board. She's catching on. Clarence fidgeted, dropped his books, and pulled Martha's hair, but Laura remembered Ma's advice and did not see him. "What Clarence? Clarence? I see no Clarence." Poor Martha did not know her grammar lesson at all. She was so hopelessly confused about complex and compound sentences that she'd stopped trying to understand them. "I know the feeling." She answered only, I don't know. I don't know." "I think you must take this lesson over, Martha," Laura had to say. And then she had an inspiration and went on. "I would like to go over it again myself. I'm trying to keep up with my class in town, and grammar is hard. If you would like to, we can go through this lesson together at the noon hour. Would you like that?" "Oh, she's becoming like Miss Beadle, like the nice teacher. Yes, I will help you. Come stay in, and I will go over the lesson with you." "Good drive, Clarence. Nutso." "Yep." "Would you like to?" "Yes, I would," Martha answered. So at noon, when they had eaten their dinners, Laura took up her grammar and said, "Ready, Martha?" Martha smiled back at her. Then Clarence asked, "Is that why you study all the time, to keep up with your class in town?" "Yes, I study at night, but I have to study here too," Laura answered, passing by him toward the blackboard. Clarence whistled, "Whew!" under his breath. Oh, are we like harassing the teacher? Oh, is this like catcalling? Oh, please tell me he is not trying to sexually harass the teacher. No. Whew, under his breath. But Laura paid no attention. At the blackboard, she worked with Martha, and Martha could diagram a complete compound sentence all by herself. Martha is smarter than I am, I think, at this point. Martha said, "I understand it now. Whew, after this, I won't dread the grammar recitation so much." So that was the trouble, Laura thought. Martha had dreaded grammar so much that she could not learn it. "Don't dread a lesson," Laura said. "I'll always be glad to study any of them with you. If you want me to. Martha's brown eyes smiled, almost like Ida's, as she said, I would like to sometimes, thank you. Laura wished that she need not be the teacher. She and Martha were the same age and might have been friends. She had decided what to do about Clarence's history lessons. He was far behind Charles and Martha, but Laura asked him no questions that he could not answer. And when she set the lesson for the next day, she said, Oh, this doesn't mean you, Clarence. It would make your lesson far too long. Let me see. How many pages are you behind? He showed her, and she said, how many do you think you can learn? Would 3 be too much? No, he said. There was nothing else he could say, no contention he could make. Then the class is dismissed, Laura said. She wondered what Clarence would do. Pa's advice in Ma's was working well so far, but would it work with Clarence? She did not ask him many questions the next day, but he seemed to know the 3 pages perfectly. Charles and Martha were now 9 pages ahead of him. Laura set them 7 pages more and said to Clarence, Would another 3 pages be too much? You may take that much if you like. Oh, I'll learn it, Clarence said, and this time he looked at Laura with a friendly smile. She is like reverse psychologying him. He is like falling hard for this. She was so surprised she almost smiled back, but she said quickly, Make it shorter if it is too much. Oh, I'll learn it, Clarence repeated. Very well, Laura said. Class dismissed. She was becoming adjusted to the pattern of the days. A silent breakfast and the chill of early morning, a shivering walk to the cold school shanty, then the usual round of recitations with recess and noon breaking it into 4 equal parts. Then the cold walk back to the Brewster's house for a cheerless supper. An evening of study and sleep on the narrow sofa. Mrs. Brewster was always sullen and silent. She seldom even quarreled at Mr. Brewster anymore. Aw, she's really not feeling well. She won't even pick on her husband. Terrible. Ooh. So good. Oh, yay. The week passed, and Friday came again. When the history class came forward to recite, Clarence said, You may hear me recite as far as Martha and Charles. I've caught up with them. Laura was amazed. She exclaimed, But how could you, Clarence? If you can study at night, I can, Clarence said. Laura almost smiled at him again. She could have liked him so much if she had not been the teacher. The brown sparkle in his eyes was like the blue sparkle in Pa's. But she was the teacher. He's like older than her, for heaven's sake. That is good, she said. Now you can all 3 go on together. She got him. She got him to totally learn all of it. All the 9 pages he was behind. She got him. With 4 o'clock came the music of the sleigh bells, and Clarence loudly whispered, Teacher's bow! Laura's cheeks grew hot, but she said quietly, You may put away your books. School is dismissed. She dreaded that Clarence might shout again, but he did not. He was well on his way toward home with Tommy and Ruby when Laura shut the shanty door behind her and Almanzo tucked her again into the cutter. So Clarence now likes her. Well, I think he did like her because he was a little bit flirty pants. And I think it was part of the problem. The teenage boy. But, I mean, he's like older than her. Heavens. Oh, snack of guy is popcorn, walnut fudge from Tracy in Michigan. Walnut fudge. So, she survived. And Clarence, although he knows it's her beau and he still made a crack about it, he whispered, he didn't scream at the top of his lungs to embarrass her. Teacher's beau is here, which I believe he did because he was jealous. Clarence is in love, L-U-V. That's what I think. Teacher's pet, crush, hot for teacher. Yep, crush. Yeah, Clarence totally has a crush, but Laura's got him. Oh, chilled out. Very smart. Now, things are about to get crazy. Chapter 7, like I said, that's a lovely children's book. Oh, wait. Chapter 7 is called A Knife in the Dark. Yes, a knife. A knife in the dark. Like I said, children's books. Anyone planning on giving, if you want your children to read Little House books, yes. But give them Big Woods. Give them Little House in the Big Woods and let them read that and read them. Then Farmer Boy. Yeah, fine. Banks of Plum Creek. Yeah, but Little House on the Prairie, Kansas, things get a little rough. You probably want to read that one first. Go over it with them. Banks of Plum Creek's pretty safe. And then after that, Laura grows up, and Rose starts kind of getting bossy now that Laura, at this point when she's writing in the 30s, is becoming a star, and so Rose is getting helpful. Things get nutty, and very grown-up things happen in the books, and it gets weird. And I would have to say that Big Woods and maybe Plum Creek, I would let a kid read by themselves. But pretty much all the other books, I would go, here, let me read this with you, because they're like, they get PG. They're like parental guidance time. So just like, warning. Knife in the dark. Mm-hmm. My phone is ringing, but everyone knows I'm reading to you, so that's like, I'm not answering. It's too bad for them. The third week went by, and the fourth. Now there were only 4 weeks more. Whew! Throughout every morning, Laura was anxious about the school day ahead. Still, it was not as bad as the Brewster's house. And every afternoon at 4 o'clock, she drew a breath of relief. One more day had gone well. There were no blizzards yet, but February was very cold. The wind was like knives. Every Friday and Sunday, Almanza Wilder had made the long, cold drive to take her home. Heavens! Laura did not know how she could get through the week without looking forward to Saturday at home, but she felt sorry for Almanza, who was making these cold drives for nothing. Oh, I don't think that's nothing, Laura. No. Oh, he making them for something, because remember the last name in the book? She does become Laura Ingalls Wilder, so he's making them for something. Yeah, yep. Much as she wanted to go home every week, she did not want to be under such an obligation to anyone. She's so polite, she has no idea. She has no clue. Whoosh, that Almanzo is madly in love with her, and that she's going to marry him. She's like, clueless. She was going with him only to get home, but he did not know that. Perhaps he was expecting her to go driving with him after she went home to stay. She did not want to feel obligated to go with him. Neither could she be unfair or deceitful. She felt she must explain this to him, but she did not know how. At home, Ma worried because she was thinner. Are you sure you get enough to eat, the Brewsters? Ma asked. And Laura answered, oh, yes, a great plenty. But it doesn't taste like home cooking. Pa said, Laura, you don't have to finish the term. If anything worries you too much, you can always come home. Why, Pa, Laura said, I couldn't quit. I wouldn't get another certificate. Besides, it's only 3 weeks more. I'm afraid you're studying too hard, Ma said. You don't look like you get enough sleep. I go to bed every night at 8 o'clock, Laura answered her. Right, because there's nothing to do with the Brewster. She's in bed every night. Of course, she's on a little tiny couch in a corner, freezing to death, but there you go. Well, as you say, it's only 3 weeks more, said Ma. She's having 2 meals a day of potatoes and sleeping on a hard couch, but there you go. No one knew how she dreaded to go back to Mrs. Brewster's. It would do no good to tell them. Being at home every Saturday raised her spirits and gave her courage for another week. Still, it was not fair to take so much from Almanza Wilder. Can you imagine, if she's thin and frail looking from spending 5 days a week there with the terrible food and the cold and sleeping on the couch and the stress, what would she look like if she wasn't coming home for the weekends? On the weekend, she's eating like at least proper food for 3 meals a day for 2 days. Friday night, all day Saturday, and all day Sunday. But, so she's getting food on the weekend and decent sleep. And she still looks like she's a wreck. What would she look like if she was staying there 7 days a week? She'd be a mess. Poor Almanzo, she thinks. Yes, she was going with him only to get... Oh, the poor dear. Only 3 weeks more. It was not fair to take so much from Almanza Wilder. He was driving her out to the Brewsters that Sunday afternoon. They hardly ever spoke during these long drives. It was too cold to talk. The jingling sleigh bells sounded frosty in the sparkling cold, and the light cutter sped so fast that the north wind following it was not very sharp on their backs. But he must face that wind all the way back to town. The Brewster shanty was not far ahead when Laura said to herself, "Stop shilly-shallying." Then she spoke out. She said, "I am going with you only because I want to get home. When I am home to stay, I will not go with you any more. So now you know. And if you want to save yourself these long, cold drives, you can." Harsh, Laura, but the words sounded horrid to her as she said them. Well, it was kind of laid it out brutal. Yep. At the same time, a dreadful they were abrupt and rude and hateful. They weren't that bad. They were abrupt. But, she had to spit it out eventually. At the same time, a dreadful realization swept over her of what it would mean if Almanzo did not come for her again. She would have to spend Saturdays and Sundays with Mrs. Brewster. After a startled moment, Almanzo said slowly, "I see." Shot down in 40 below weather in a cutter. There was no time to say more. They were at Mrs. Brewster's door. The horses must not stand and get chilled. Quickly, Laura got out, saying, "Thank you." He touched his hand to his fur cap, and the cutter went swiftly away. "It's only 3 weeks more," Laura said to herself, but she could not keep her spirits from sinking. All that week, the weather grew colder. On Thursday morning, Laura found that the quilt had frozen stiff around her nose while she slept. Imagine being indoors. You're indoors, you're in a house, and it's so cold. Well, it freezes on your nose. Her fingers were so numb she could hardly dress. In the other room, the stove lids were red hot, but the heat seemed unable to penetrate the cold around it. Laura was holding her numbed hands above the stove when Mr. Brewster burst in, tore off his boots, and began violently rubbing his feet. Mrs. Brewster went quickly to him. "Oh, Louis, what's the matter?" she asked so anxiously that Laura was surprised. "My feet," Mr. Brewster said. I ran all the way from the schoolhouse, but there's no feeling in them." "Let me help," his wife said. Wait, what? What? She got nice on it? What's going on with Mrs. Brewster? I don't know. She took his feet into her lap and helped him rub them. She was so concerned and so kind that she seemed like another woman. "Oh, Louis, this dreadful country," she said. "Oh, am I hurting you?" "No, go on," Mr. Brewster grunted. "It shows the blood's coming back into them." When they had saved his half-frozen feet, Mr. Brewster told Laura not to go to school that day. "You would freeze," he said. She protested, but the children will come, and I must be there." "I don't think they'll come," he said. "I built a fire, and if they do come, they can get warm and go home again." "There will be no school today," he said flatly. That settled it, for a teacher must obey the head of the school board. It was a long, wretched day. Oh, great, she gets a day off with these folks. A long, wretched day. Mrs. Brewster was sat huddled in a quilt close to the stove and sullenly brooding. Mr. Brewster's feet were painful, and Johnny fretted with a feverish cold. Laura did the dishes, made her bed in the freezing cold, and studied her school books. When she tried to talk, there was something menacing in Mrs. Brewster's silence. At last it was bedtime. Laura hoped desperately that tomorrow she could go to school. Meantime, she could escape by going to sleep. The cold in the bedroom took her breath away and stiffened her hands so she could hardly undress. For a long time she lay too cold to sleep, but slowly she began to be warmer. A scream woke her. Mrs. Brewster screamed, "You kicked me!" I did not," Mr. Brewster said, but I will if you don't go put up that butcher knife." What is happening? Laura sat straight up. Moonlight was streaming over her bed from the window. Mrs. Brewster screamed again, a wild sound without words that made Laura's scalp crinkle. "Take that knife back to the kitchen," Mr. Brewster said. "Ree-ha-ha!" Mrs. Brewster has a knife. She has a knife, and she's screaming. Laura peeped through the crack between the curtains. The moonlight shone through the calico and thinned the darkness so that Laura saw Mrs. Brewster standing there. Her long white flannel nightgown trailed on the floor, and her black hair fell loose over her shoulders. In her upraised hand she held the butcher knife. Laura had never been so terribly frightened. And look, it's a horror movie. It's a horror movie. Mrs. Brewster's in a long white gown with her hair trailing, waving a knife. Oh, it's just turned into horror. It's just turned into like Alfred Hitchcock Psycho. Oh no. She's totally bonkers. And she's got a knife and she says, "If I can't go home one way, I can't another," said Mrs. Brewster. "Go put that knife back," said Mr. Brewster. He lay still, but was tense to spring. Oh, popcorn. Popcorn's like a horror movie. "Will you or won't you?" she demanded. "You'll catch your death of cold," he said. "I won't go over that again this time of night. I've got you and Johnny to support, and nothing in the world but this claim. Go put up that knife and come to bed before you freeze." The knife stopped shaking as Mrs. Brewster's fist clenched on the handle. "Go put it back in the kitchen," Mr. Brewster ordered. After a moment, Mrs. Brewster turned and went to the kitchen. Not until she came back and got into bed did Laura let the curtains fall together again. Softly, she drew the bed covers over her and lay staring at the curtain. She was terribly frightened. Do you think? She dared not sleep. Suppose she woke to see Mrs. Brewster standing over her with that knife. Mrs. Brewster did not like her. What could she do? The nearest house was a mile away. She would freeze if she tried to reach it in this cold. Wide awake, she stared at the curtains and listened. There was no sound but the wind. The moon went down, and she stared at the dark till the gray winter daylight came. When she heard Mr. Brewster build the fire and Mrs. Brewster beginning to cook breakfast, she got up and dressed. Oh, now she's up making breakfast. Nothing was different. Breakfast was the usual silent meal. Laura went to school as soon as she could get away. She felt safe there for the day. It was Friday. So, Mr. Brewster is so used to this, she goes mad and menaces everyone in the house with a knife. And I think she's also threatening suicide. I can go home one way or another. She's going to kill him and herself. Terrible. And the poor child. What's she going to do with the poor child? And she probably would have totally killed Laura. But then she gets up and makes breakfast. Because that's what you did. Terrifying. The poor woman. So, she goes to school. It was Friday. The wind was blowing fiercely. Fortunately, it was not a blizzard wind, but it scoured hard particles of snow from the frozen drifts and drove them through every crack in the shanty's north and west walls. From all sides the cold came in. The big coal heater seemed to make no impression on that cold. Laura called the school to order. Though she was near the stove, her feet were numb, and her fingers could not grip a pencil. She knew that it was colder in the seats. "Better put your coats on again," she said, "and all of you come to the fire. You may take turns sitting in the front seat or standing by the stove to get warm. Study as best you can." All day the snow was blown low across the prairie. And through the schoolroom's walls. Ice froze thick on the water pail, and at noon they set their dinner pails on the stove to thaw the frozen food before they ate it. The wind was steadily growing colder. It cheered Laura to see how well every pupil behaved. No one took advantage of the disorder to be idle or unruly. No one whispered. They all stood by the stove, studying and quietly turning about to warm their backs, and all their recitations were good. Charles and Clarence took turns, going out into the wind to get coal from the bin and keep up the fire. Laura dreaded this day's end. She was afraid to go back to the house. She was sleepy. Well, yeah, she stayed up the whole night. She was up all night watching for the lady with the knife, so just like no sleep. She was sleepy. She knew that she must sleep, and she feared to sleep in Mrs. Brewster's house. All day tomorrow and Sunday, she must be in that house alone with Mrs. Brewster, and much of the time Mr. Brewster would be at the stable. She knew she must not be afraid. Pa had always said she must never be afraid. Very likely, nothing would happen. She was not exactly afraid of Mrs. Brewster, for she knew she was quick and strong as a little French horse. It's like, I could take her. I could take her. That is, when she was awake. But she had never wanted so much to go home. Oh, it had been right to tell a man so wilder the truth, but she wished she had not done it so soon. Still, he would not have come so far in such bitter cold anyway. Every moment the wind blew stronger and colder. At 3:30, they were all so cold she thought of dismissing school early. The mile that Martha and Charles must walk worried her. On the other hand, She should not cut short the pupil's opportunity for learning, and this was not a blizzard. Suddenly, she heard sleigh bells. They were coming. In a moment, they were at the door. Prince and Lady passed the window, and Clarence exclaimed, "That Wilder's a bigger fool than I thought he was to come out in this weather." "You may all put away your books," Laura said. It was much too cold for the horses to stand outdoors. "It is growing colder, and the sooner everyone reaches home, the better," she said. "School is dismissed." "He's back!" Well, chapter 8 is next, and it's called A Cold Ride. I'll bet that's a mighty cold ride. Trying to figure out, she's like, now she's got to leave the Brewsters, and here she just told him, no, I'm not going with you, and don't bother, and well, that'll fix him, and no, he's not going to come, and he totally shut up. Love, 'cause she loves her, Laura, sitting in a tree. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Yay! Tomorrow's chapter 8. Am I reading tomorrow? I think I'm reading tomorrow. But I'm going to have to look at this, because if it gets particularly lovey-dovey, I'm totally, like, if he proposes in here somewhere, he must, right? Totally. They must be getting married, right? Somewhere, wedding plans. Okay, yes, there's totally a way. So, when it gets to where Almanzo and Laura are like kissy-poo, lovey-dovey at proposing, I'm totally having Dean read that. So there you are. I'm going to drink my Frappuccino and get some more stuff done and eat my popcorn and put my fudge in the freezer, not the refrigerator, as it says. And all will be well. So, yes. Oh, I told you I got tested. Didn't I? Yes, I did. I said, I'm going out and getting tested. Rawr. And I did. I went and I sat in my car and I showed them my little piece of paper and I drove around in circles in parking lots like Disneyland driving. And then they handed me a bag and they said, "Did you watch the video?" I said, "Yes, I watched the video." The next person said, "Did you watch the video?" "Yes, I watched the video." They said, "Oh, go over there if you watch the video." And so it's a thing. What was it? It was cough 5 times, swab for 20 seconds, and then you put it in there, shake 3 times. It's 5, 20, and 3. I had to remember that. 5 times, and then swab your mouth. You didn't have to, no, up, down the throat, it's good. And then it goes in the jar, shake it 3 times. That's what I had to do for the COVID test. And then you put it back in the thing, and then you get the last person. And you know those plastic things? But like in the commercials that like for elderly people with arthritis, they used to get things off shelves. They all had them. They're like, "Here, I'll take your bag with my little plastic tongs." They took the bag. It's hilarious. And they took the thing, and they took it, and then I went away, and I was like, and then magically a text and an email came, and they said that I am negative. I am not currently infected. I am negative for the COVID-19 virus. Woo! Now, I'm being very careful. I'm seeing my doctor this week anyway, because, you know, it's a little, which is totally not actually a symptom of COVID-19. You have to be like, wait, like much sicker than that. It's not like, and I have no fever. So I'm like, but I am monumentally blessed and lucky that I have a doctor who's seeing people, and health insurance. So I'm like, woohoo! So a lot of my friends don't have those things. They don't have a regular doctor and they don't have health insurance. So I'm like, I'm gonna go. So I'm gonna be super duper duper good and talk to my doctor and make sure that everything is hunky dunky dory. But so far so good, no fever, and the test came back negative. So I'm probably just like wheezing because it's like plants blooming furiously right now. So all is well. So washing them hands. I got more masks. My friends are all making them. There's Kimberly makes masks. Brenda makes masks. There's all these gorgeous masks out there with Disney things on them. There's Eric Caron has a site and he's got stuff. He's got Little House on the Prairie mask. I got to get some Nellie Oleson masks. Yeah. And there you are. So bonnets. And there you are, and things just keep happening, and I will keep you posted. So everybody stay safe, and I will see you tomorrow.